So the Let Them Shine grant is a grant that's sponsored by the National Writing Project as well as John Legend's Show Me campaign. And it's a grant that was awarded to Albemarle County Public Schools for 11th grade students in U.S. history. And their challenge to the grant is to look at the monuments that we have in our community, as well as other monuments in the region and in the state and nationally, and ask some hard questions like, why do we have monuments? And when we're touring these monuments, whose stories haven't been told? And then the ultimate challenge for the students is to take the spring and actually create monuments for untold stories in our region.
Historical context plays an enormous role when it comes to memorials, because you have to be able to understand why the memorial is there, not just the fact that there is a memorial, but the reasons behind it being where it is. We can always take lessons from our past to understand how the course of actions that we are taking now might affect our future.
We're teaching kids how to think about these really complex issues that are actively affecting our culture. I would argue have always affected our culture, and to think about what are our commemoration practices in this country, and are they serving us well?
You don't want to have a memorial that doesn't tell the true story, but because history has happened and we look at it through the experience that we have now, then we build the memorials to remember what had happened. Memorials can tell a very pretty story or a very ugly story, depending on what you build. You can build memorials to victory, to people who have made successful acts towards the progress of the nation, or you can build stuff to remember the grim past of the nation and reflect how we could be different in the future.
It's been really interesting to see the kids come in, and first of all, just listening to their little group discussions, we barely even have to give them any guidelines, because they're coming from these sessions and listening to the different types of sessions and hearing them, kind of see how they can take their own personal experiences and turn those into memorials and monuments and kind of get their own history out there. That's what's been really interesting. And so getting them into the podcast booth is kind of giving them a chance to have those discussions. And kind of the coolest thing is that once you kind of shut the door and they're in there, it's really just the kids having a conversation with each other, and it's very easy for them to kind of forget that the teachers and the instructors and the scholars and everyone are kind of out here, so they really get to interact with each other, and it's much more of like a student-on-student conversation.